A video has been going viral showing surveillance camera footage of a man in downtown Minneapolis being beaten and robbed, and it is a brutal and graphic video. If you haven't seen it, trigger warning. And I mean it. I'm not one to actually, entertain these fake trigger warnings, but this is legit. This is a dude being beaten, stripped, run over with a bike, jumped on, kicked, punched, robbed, all of these things. Some people might not want to see that. So I give you that warning. Now here's the thing. A lot of people are blaming Ilhan Omar personally for this, saying it's her district, what is she going to do about it? Well, come on, she just got elected in 2018. I know that she was a local politician. Minneapolis is starting to face problems, and I can't tell you why. I can't. I don't know. I don't live there. I can read this story, however, from ABC5 Eyewitness News, and then show you this story. Back in Omar's district, police deal with gangs, relations with tight-lipped Somali community. Gang activity. I'm not going to tell you what's causing it, but it's happening. Let's read the story from Eyewitness 5. Before we get started, however, head over to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. When dealing with stories like this that are contentious, I could get in trouble. YouTube doesn't allow these kind of conversations, but it's a news story from a credible source. That means I make it demonetized, deranked. So two things. Support my work through PayPal, a cryptocurrency, or a physical address, or share this video because YouTube is definitely not going to, they're going to derank it. Let's read. This is from September 11th. The Minneapolis Police Department has arrested more than a dozen suspects involved in a crime ring that focused on robbing cell phones from intoxicated people and then beating the victims. According to a report provided by Minneapolis Police spokesperson John Elder, a 3-day sweep conducted 2 weeks ago, ended with police arresting 16 people between the ages of 13 and 25. The suspects were seen on surveillance video punching, kicking, and riding over one man with a bike. The robberies occurred near Hennepin, 1st and 2nd Avenues between 3rd and 6th Street, and happened between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. The suspects were mostly boys and men with a female sometimes present. They would finesse the victim, looking for an easy target, such as someone who is intoxicated and alone. Looking at their cell phone at times, Elder said half of the assailants are juveniles. I want to expand upon this finesse thing. My understanding is this is something we dealt with in Chicago with gangs. They surround you, and they quickly frisk and pull everything out of your pockets and then disperse. You don't know who grabbed what or why, and they don't often hurt you. They just surround you and push you, and then you're disoriented, and they take all your stuff. Let's read on. One of the incidents happened on August 3rd near Target Field. According to the criminal complaint, the footage shows approximately 12 males attempting to take a cell phone from a male victim, viciously beating him. The suspects are seen ripping the victim's shoes and pants off and then going through his pockets. The victim is noted to be punched and kicked in the head several times throughout the altercation. At one point, the complaint states the victim is thrown to the ground, left motionless, then repeatedly jumped on, hit with planting pots, and ridden over with a bicycle. Once police arrive, the victim and all suspects involved are gone. Then, on September 6th, after further investigation, officers recognized one of the assailants from the video and arrested him. He is identified as Boris Likuo Lasumbo, 20. The video shows Lasumbo running toward the victim along with other attackers after the victim was struck by another attacker. He was seen picking up something off the ground that the victim dropped and walked away with. Lasumbo admitted it was him in the video to the police. He has been charged with first-degree aggravated robbery and faces up to 20 years in prison for the crime if convicted. In another incident on August 17th, a man stated to police he was out with friends at a bar in downtown Minneapolis when he was robbed and assaulted. He claimed he didn't remember much of the incident because he lost consciousness. This is kind of weird, though. Let me explain. It says, according to the criminal complaint, the victim said he was standing on a corner using his phone when a group surrounded him and tried to take his wallet. He said he lost his iPhone in his wallet, which contained his driver's license, debit card, keys, and $100 in cash. He also was notified by his bank that $220 was withdrawn at an ATM using his debit card. He was left motionless by the group and was eventually assisted to his feet by bystanders. How did they know his PIN number? $220 is also a very specific amount to withdraw. It's possible it's all he had in there, but how did they get his PIN number? So, I don't know. I just want to make sure I point that out. So here's the thing. I always hate how they try and lay everything onto Ilhan Omar, right? It's like there was one story that said woman goes to Ilhan Omar's home country and then gets killed in an attack or whatever. And it's like, dude, Ilhan Omar is one person and it's a whole country. She's not like, the point is, just because it's her district doesn't mean it's her fault. There is an interesting point here, however, though. This is specifically within the Somali community, which does include Omar, who was elected by the Somali community. In which case, there are problems that she probably needs to speak up and deal with because she has influence in this community. Now, I know a lot of people like to get very, very racist whenever you talk about stories like this. And so another reason I want to talk about this is to point out, don't be surprised when poor communities commit violence. Okay? I can't stand the racists when they try and make it seem like it's a racial issue and not a refugee or poverty issue. You can be a refugee from any country. You can be poor and of any race. And the story I tell you about being on the south side of Chicago was not because of Somali refugees. It's just poor people in gangs, and that's what happens when people are poor. They join gangs, they commit crimes, they sell drugs. Crime and poverty are linked. But, it's frustrating to me when I try and explain this to people. This is what's so frustrating about this, is that I know how this story will be framed. The reality is, listen, it's fair to point out, if we bring in a large community of refugees, you will see crime. Not because refugees themselves are more likely to commit crime, but that poor communities see higher crime. If you bring in refugees, people without skills who aren't working, you will see an increase in crime. At least that's the general assumption, and it tends to happen. Because of this failed policy, you end up emboldening racists. What you could really do, and what they've started doing in Sweden, is not putting everybody in the same community so you create a ghetto. You have to spread people out and help them integrate and get jobs. I absolutely think taking in refugees is a good thing. We need to help people who are desperate. And there's certainly a lot of people in Somalia who are desperate, and we can help them. But these people who offer these plans don't actually care. They bring in the Somalis and they say, go for it. Nothing gets solved. People are now in a foreign country, they don't understand, and they don't have the resources, and you see young people turning to crime. Now look, I think part of it, especially this video, was arrogance and gang power, right? This group of people are with their friends, and they know they can do whatever they want because there are more of them and one of him. So you end up seeing this. You're going to end up seeing gang violence, and it's very similar to what I saw in Sweden. They put all these people in areas because basically they were like, if you come to this country, you can live wherever you want. Naturally, people want to live with their friends and family, but that creates a cultural clash where people are viewed as outsiders and struggle. And then young people being angry and not caring about the system, feeling they're not a part of it, turn to crime. Let's read a little bit about what's going on with this Fox News story. This is from February. They say, in the dead of the cold, late night on Tuesday, a young Somali man was shot in the hip. Someone took him to the local trauma center, left him there, and drove off. The man told police at his bedside that he didn't know who shot him, who took him to the hospital, or why he was targeted. I'm intoxicated, he told the cops, while doctors tended to his wound before insisting he didn't know anything else about what happened. For the attending police officers, it was a frustrating, albeit familiar response from a member of the Somali community, whose support in November sent one of their own, Ilhan Omar, to Congress. While Omar has spoken out frequently and forcefully on a range of issues, some that seem little connected to her district, most members of the Somali community she represents remain far more insular. They say the national epidemic of shootings involving young African-American men in America's cities certainly isn't unique to Minneapolis. But some officers here believe issues of cultural assimilation involving the Somali immigrant community and a struggle on both sides to better communicate law enforcement's mandate to protect and serve make it a particularly imposing challenge, one that politicians like Omar, they say, could do much more to effectively address. Spot on, Fox News. Cultural assimilation issues. Failed policy. And I gotta say it, a lot of people on the left just say, bring in the refugees, and they don't talk about what happens next. And then you get this. Don't be surprised when, people who don't understand what's going on turn to racism because they don't get it. They don't understand why they're seeing this particular community doing this thing, and they assume race is the driving factor, when in reality, if these people were wealthier, they'd not be doing this. They'd be protecting their wealth. I don't want to say, definitively, because you have to recognize, too, culture plays an issue. A big culture plays a part. What did I say, picture? Culture is part of the picture. Okay, so if someone comes from a culture that glorifies violence, then they'll engage in that. But if you give these people a real opportunity, plan appropriately and properly for bringing in migrants, you will see less of this. Instead, what happens? Viral video of Somali gangs beating and robbing people. And this does nothing for anybody. You certainly didn't help the refugees by putting them in this position. They're not helping themselves by engaging in crime and beating people. And you're not helping the people of Minneapolis. No one is being served by this. Certainly, I will lay the responsibility at the hands of those committing the crime for sure. And then, after they're responsible for the crimes they committed, I will ask those who offer up these people to come here without a plan, why aren't you planning for this? Not for crime, but for assimilating people. And it's like I said with Sweden. They learned they have to spread people out and place them. You can't just create ghettos. I got one more segment coming up in a few minutes. Stick around. I will see you shortly.